Welcome back. In today's lecture, we will look at few basic concepts of pipelining. Earlier, we had an introduction about pipelining in the unit second, where I have told you that there are 5 steps of a program execution, that is instruction fetch, instruction decode, then execute, after that memory operations and write back. So these are the 5 steps which I have told you, and if you allow them to execute in a pipelined fashion, you require only 9 clock cycles to complete 5 instructions, and if you allow them to execute in a non-pipelined fashion, you are taking, in that scenario, you are taking 25 clock cycles. Okay, so that is the need, or that is the requirement of pipelining that we need to perform. Okay, through pipelining, what we can do, we can reduce the execution time. Okay, so that is what it is all about. Pipelining is a concept of enhancing the performance without significantly investing into hardware. Okay, so let's say we want to add 4 numbers. Okay, so to add 4 numbers, we require 4 half adder. If we want to add 1 bit, 1 bit, 1 bit, 1 bit, that means if we want to add 4 bits to 4 bits, we require 4 half adders, or we require 2 full adder. Okay, so if we divide the task of this operation into multiple subtasks, then we can also improve our performance without significantly investing into hardware. Okay, so we do not require here 4 half adders or 2 full adders. We just need to do divide the task into subtasks. Okay, so we are not increasing hardware components, but we are using different philosophy. That means we are executing the instruction, or we are executing the program in a overlapped fashion, so that the performance improvement can be done without actually investing into hardware. Okay, so we can divide a complete task into number of subtasks, and we will allow each and every subtask to be performed with the same hardware that we are using. Okay, so we had an extra cost, that is dividing a task into subtask. Other than that, we have no extra cost in pipelining. Okay, so we shall see how we can improve the performance of arithmetic system. That means inside arithmetic we have addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. So how we can channelize these operations into pipeline fashion, so that the performance can be improved, and the data and program, both sort of instructions, can be performed in a pipelined fashion to increase the performance. Okay, so the basic definition of pipelining would be, it is a mechanism for overlapped execution of several different computations. Okay, so let's say there is a for loop, and inside that for loop we want to add, multiply. Okay, so these are the 2 operations we need to perform inside for loop, and that we have to do for 100 such values. Okay, so for that we will apply an adder and multiplier in such a way that when one value is getting added, then the second value will wait, and when the first value would be fed to multiplier, the second value would be fed to adder. Okay, so simultaneously we are able to perform multiple tasks, or simultaneously we are able to perform execution for different computations. So that mechanism is known to be pipelining. Okay, so inside pipelining, several computation means we divide the overall computation into k sub computations or stages. Okay, so if we do that, then ideally we should be getting a speed up of k. Okay, so if I do this, a nominal increase in cost of computation or implementation, because we have divided the overall computation into some sub computations. So the only cost is here is how you are going to divide your overall task into multiple subtasks. Okay, so that is the extra cost here. Other than that, there is no extra cost, and by doing it we are almost getting the speed up of k. So ideally it would be k, okay, and if it is not k, it would be much higher than, it would be much higher, and it would be much significant speed up. Okay, so to get a significant speed up, we have to have the pipelining concept in our instruction execution. Okay, so why it is used? Because these are the few reasons, that is instruction execution. So several instruction can be executed in same sequence. So let's say this is a sequence, that is instruction fetch, instruction decode, execute, memory operations. That means if your execution require another memory access, and then write back. So if your execution requires another memory access, or you want to store your result into some memory location, this stage would be utilized. So if you have 100 instruction, so when first instruction is getting decoded, the second instruction would be fetched, and when the, you can say, 50th instructions is into this phase, 49th instruction would be into this phase, 48th instruction would be into this phase. Okay, so likewise we can execute the instruction in a overlapped fashion, so that we can get a speed up of significant amount. And the second is arithmetic computation. So let's say we have to perform same operations, and we have to perform same operation over several data sets. Okay, so let's say we have 10 values, and out of those 10 values we have to perform some addition with a constant number, or multiply with a constant number. So that we can do simultaneously on those 10 numbers. That means the 10th number would be stored back, and 9th number would be getting multiplied, 8th number would be getting decoded, and 7th number would be getting fetched. So in that way we can speed up our arithmetic computation. And last one is memory access. Okay, so if we want to execute a program, for that we need to access the memory. Now if let's say we have fetched one instruction, and that instruction required memory access, so we have accessed the memory, then we have decoded that instruction, and finally we execute, and finally we result into register, finally we store the result into register. Now if we do that one by one, it would take a huge amount of time. Okay, so why don't we consecutive access the memory, so that we can fetch many instructions, and one by one each instruction would be executed. Okay, so several memory access to consecutive locations can be made, and if we do so, then we will be saving a lot of time of computation. Okay, so this is these all three things would be more clear to you if you see this real life example. So let's say you have to build a machine M, and that machine have three tasks. That means it's a washing machine which is used to perform wash, dry, and there is another unit which performs the ironing onto those clothes. Okay, so there are three components inside that machine. One component is washing the clothes, another component is drying the clothes, and the last component is making the iron onto those clothes. Okay, so these are the three components in that machine. Okay, so three stages in machine to which cloths can be moved or cloths can be fed. But please remember this thing very carefully, that one cloth at a time. Okay, so you have to fed one cloth at a time. Okay, more than one cloth cannot be fed into a particular stage. So that assumptions I am taking, and that assumptions you have to remember. So that means in any of the unit or in any of the stage, you cannot fed or you cannot put more than one cloth at a time. Okay, let's say total time required is T. Okay, so wash plus dry plus iron, iron is represented here by letter R. So the total time is T, that means wash time plus dry time plus iron time, total time is here T. So as an alternative, what we can do is we can divide this task into three multiple stages, and then we will be looking at what we are getting, whether we are able to complete that task into some less amount of time if we divide that into 3 units or multiple units. So let's see what is the time for non-pipelined fashion. Okay, so let's say one clock takes t amount of time. So if we have to perform for n cloths, total time would be n multiplied by 2. Okay, so if the one cloth take w plus d plus r, that is total t amount of time to wash, dry and ironing, if you have n number of cloths, total time would be n multiplied by t. So nt would be the total time. Now as an alternative, what we can do, we split the machine into three smaller units or three smaller sub machines. Okay, one machine which can perform only washing, one machine which can perform only drying, and the last which can perform ironing onto cloths. And the assumption we have already taken is that at a time only one cloth can be fed into any of the unit. Okay, so therefore time required by each of the smaller machine is t by 3. So let's say each unit takes equal amount of time. So we can say that washing unit takes t by 3, drying unit will take t by 3, and ironing unit will take t by 3. So if we do this way, we will be able to see that for n clothes, what will be our output. So washing takes t by 3, drying takes t by 3, and ironing takes t by 3. So please look at this diagram. Okay, so let's say we have fed cloth 1. So cloth 1 has been fed into washing unit and it is now being washed. Okay, now when the cloth 1 have finished the washing subtask, it would be transferred to drying unit so that it could be dried off, and in the same time cloth 2 has been fed into washing unit, because all the three units are now independent. We have divided the machine into three smaller parts, and those three smaller units can be made functional in a overlapped fashion. Okay, so cloth 1 is now in drying unit, cloth 2 is, we have fed the cloth 2 into washing unit. Okay, after that, let's say cloth 1 has finished the drying operation, so it would be moved to this unit, that is ironing unit. We already know that each unit will take t by 3 amount of time. So when cloth 1 has finished drying, cloth 2 must have finished the washing unit. So cloth 2 would be transferred to drying unit, cloth 1 would be transferred to ironing unit, and at the same time we can fed cloth 3 into washing unit. Okay, now after 3 cycles, after 3 time periods, that is t by 3 plus t by 3 plus t by 3, after t time unit, we will be getting cloth 1 finished. That means cloth 1 would have finished w plus d plus r. That means all 3 units, all 3 machines, it has been gone through, and cloth 1 is now in finished state. It is being washed, it is being dried, and it is being ironed. Okay, so after time t, we are able to get one cloth. Okay, and after time t plus t by 3, we will be getting cloth 2 ready. And what I mean to say here is, after time t, you will be getting one cloth, then another one cloth, one cloth, one cloth. After each time period, that is t by 3, okay, you will be getting one cloth completed. Okay, so your total execution time for n cloths would be 2 plus n multiplied by t by 3. Why we have performed 2 plus n? Because each of the unit takes t by 3 amount, and after 2 plus n, that means after 2 units of time, that is t by 3 plus t by 3, you would be getting one cloth ready. So that is why 2 plus n multiplied by t by 3. Okay, which means that we will be able to get the speed up of approximately equal to 3. Okay, so now let's say n is very large. Okay, so if you divide nt by t by 3, that means we are able to get a speed up of approximately equal to 3. Okay, So why we have performed 2 plus n into t by 3? Because after t by 3 plus t by 3, at each time slot one cloth is ready. That is why total time here is 2 plus n into t by 3. So cloth 1 would finish by t, cloth 2 would finish by t plus t by 3, that is 4t by 3, and after each t by 3 you will be getting one cloth ready. Okay, so total time would be 2 plus n multiplied by t by 3. How this is derived? You can see here, cloth 1 is t, cloth 2 is 4t by 3, cloth 3 is 5t by 3, clock 4 is 6t by 3. Okay, so clock n would be 2 plus n multiplied by t by 3. Okay, this is how we got the expression. And analytically you will be also able to know that after t by 3 plus t by 3 we will be getting one cloth ready. So that is why we have added 2 into n. Okay, now we can extend this concept to processor pipeline. That means we can extend this concept to hardware component, how the processor wants to execute the instructions. Okay, so let's say we want to get a speed up of k for some computation. So as like here we have got the speed up of 3 because we have divided our machine into 3 smaller units. Now we want to get, or we want to achieve a speed up of k for any sort of computation. So there are two alternatives for that. First alternative would be we just replicate the hardware k times. Okay, let's say we want to add 4 bits of data, so we can apply 4 half adders for that. Okay, but in that case cost goes up k times, because you are replicating the hardware for k times, your cost would be multiplied by k. Okay, second alternative would be you can split the computation in k number of stages. Okay, as like we have done for washing, drying and iron, you can also split the computation for k number of stages, and if you do so you will be able to get a speed up of k, speed up of around k. I would not say exactly equal to k, but yes, it is of the order of k with very nominal increase in cost. Okay, so where your cost will come into this picture in this alternative, because you are splitting the machine, or you are splitting the overall computation into number of stages. So that's where the cost lies, but for this nominal cost you will be able to get the potential speed up of k. Now when we perform this pipelining into practical, we need some sort of buffering. Okay, so what this buffering means, let's say in washing example, let's say one machine have finished the operation, the cloth, or one machine have finished its task. After that we need some sort of buffer or tray to store the cloth temporarily. Okay, so let's say first machine have completed the washing. Okay, now we want that it should be fed to drying unit. In between that there must be some small delay, or there must be some buffer or tray sort of operation to store the cloth temporarily. Okay, so we need a tray between machines, that is washing and drying and ironing, to keep the cloth temporarily before it is accepted by the next machine. So I think you got the concept that between any subtask you need a buffer, or you need a tray to store the result temporarily. Okay, and why we need that? To store the intermediate result temporarily, so that we can feed it to the next stage as soon as possible. Okay, as soon as the next stage or next sub machine would become free. Okay, so similarly in hardware pipeline we need something similar to buffer, or we need something similar to delay. Okay, and that delay would be provided by a latch or a resistor between successive stages, or between adjacent stages, consecutive stages, to hold the result temporarily. Okay, so let's say this is a model of synchronous k stage pipeline. So let's say we have divided our task into 3 stages. You can assume these 3 stages as washing, drying and ironing. So this stage is S1, this stage is represented by S2, this stage is represented by S3, and we can extend it to k number of stages. So that is ... up to k. Okay, Now this is the stage 1, okay, and all the stages are connected to this clock, okay. So when we activate the clock, all the latches become active to store the result temporarily, okay. So this is our stage 1. This is a latch or a register to store the intermediate result, or to it can be treated as a buffer or tray. Then when stage 1 have finished one clock or one operation, it would be fed to first latch to hold the clock temporarily, so that when S2 or this machine gets free, it can be fed to S2 stage, okay. So this is a synchronous k stage pipelining, where I have shown you the latch where you can store your temporarily result into buffer or some register or latch that acts as a delay element here, okay. Why this is synchronous, called synchronous pipeline? Because all the stages are synchronized with clock, okay. So when clock becomes active, all the latches became active, and the intermediate result of a stage would be stored into this latch, okay. So there are k number of stages in the previous diagram, and each of the stage involves some computation, okay. So S1, S2, S3 up to Sk, these are your number of stages, okay. Each stage has a latch. Latch is basically used to store the result of a previous stage temporarily, and why we need that? So that the next stage gets free and next stage gets ready to accept the input from the latch. And these latches are generally master slave flip flops, and that master slave flip flop you have studied in digital logic course, okay. Now I have already told you that the clock, this was the synchronous pipeline, k stage pipeline. In the previous figure you have already seen that, and to each of the stage one clock is connected, okay. In each of the latch one clock is there, okay. And why that clock is there? Because it will generate the active signals periodically, so that after each of the clock period all stage completes their execution and the result would be stored into latch, okay. So that is why your clock would be used, okay. After each clock period the result would be stored into latch, and each of the stage would expected to complete their execution. Now these pipeline stages are typically combinational circuits, okay. Combinational circuits you have already studied in your digital logics course. Combinational circuits are basically your this adders, subtractors, multipliers and dividers, okay. So when clock is applied, all latch transfer data to the next stage, right from the first stage to the last stage, okay. So that is why this clock is there. When clock becomes active, all latch transfer data to the next stage, okay. Now these are the types of pipeline processors, okay. These processors can be classified based upon different parameters, okay. So based upon different parameters of execution, or based upon different style of execution, these pipeline processors were classified. So the first classification is degree of overlap, how the instructions are getting overlapped. So pipeline can be serial, it can be overlapped, or it can be pipelined, okay. Overlapped and pipelined means you will be able to understand this in due course of time, that overlapped can be linear and pipelined may be linear or non-linear both, okay. Second classification would be depth of pipeline. So the depth may be shallow or depth may be deep. And the last one is structure of pipelining, it can be linear or non-linear, okay. And the last is how we can schedule the operation in the pipelining. So it can be static or dynamic. So there are 4 classification. First is degree of overlap, whether it is serial, whether it is overlapped or pipelined. Next is depth of pipeline, that is shallow or deep. Third one is structure of pipeline, that is linear or non-linear. Last one is static or dynamic, okay. So we will be briefly looking at each of these classification. So I am taking the first one, that is degree of overlap. So serial may be strictly non-pipelined implementation would be known to you, that is serial. Okay, so it will always be sequential. One complete instruction would be executed, after that execution of second instruction would start. When this second instruction would be executed, after that the next instruction would be executed inside a processor. Okay, so that would be strictly non-pipelined implementation, completely serial, or we can also call it as sequential execution. Then overlapped. So overlap means there is some overlap between successive operation. Okay, overlap means there can be partial overlap. Okay, so in case of partial overlap, let's say this instruction has 1 2 3 4 5 6 number of stages. Okay, and these 3 stages are overlapped. Okay, out of these 6 there are only 3 stages which are executing in overlapped fashion. So this is partial overlap. Okay, and when we apply this sort of operation, okay, this is just saving only 2 time units, because there is a partial overlap for just 2 stages. Okay, so it will take 2 time unit less only. Now the third is pipelined. So pipelined is fine grain overlap, that means almost complete overlap between successive operation. So this is how a pipelined execution of instruction can be there. So this has 6 number of stages, and leaving the first stage or leaving the initial stage, the second instruction is overlapped. So when the first instruction is getting decoded, the second instruction is allowed to fetch. So that is the ideal scenario. Now we are going to discuss the second pipeline, that is depth of pipeline. Okay, you can argue that why don't we have a very large value of k? Okay, because I have already told you that if you divide your computation into k number of sub computation, you will be getting almost the speed up of k. Okay, so how it would be the scenario that if you divide your computation into very large value of k, then you should be getting that much amount of speed up, but that is not the scenario, because we have already seen that if we have k stages, okay, we will be getting a speed up of k, but we cannot do beyond a limit. Okay, so you cannot increase the value of k beyond a specified limit. Okay, so let's say this is a deep pipeline and this is a shallow pipeline. So deep pipeline has more number of stages, whereas shallow pipeline has few number of stages. Okay, so there must be a restriction onto value of k. So if you allow k to be very large, that will not help. Okay, because you cannot increase it beyond a limit. Okay, so that limit we will be discussing in due course of time, that how much amount you can increase the value of k. Okay, so shallow will have fewer number of stages, and individual stages are more complex, because here you are having a very less number of stages. So stages may have a very complex execution. Here you have more number of stages, hence you can expect that there would be simpler individual stages. Okay, okay, there is very important thing here is, if you have number of stages dependent to each other, you cannot allow them to be executed without conflict. Okay, so let's say these 2 stages are dependent to each other. Okay, in that case you cannot allow operations without conflict. Okay, so what is conflict, that I am going to discuss in the next slide. Okay, so this is your linear pipeline, which is most of conventional computations are divided into number of stages and executed one after another in sequence. So let's say these are the 3 stages, first stage, second stage and third stage. You fed the input from here, it would be executed into A stage, then it would be transferred to B, executed here, it would be transferred to C, executed here, and in this way it goes on. So that is your linear pipeline, which is most conventional, because here execution will take place one after another. Second is non-linear pipeline. Okay, so in non-linear pipeline, conflict may occur. Okay, so in previous slide I talked about the conflict. Okay, so here the conflict may occur because you do not know that where you have to fed the input. If you are feeding the input by modifying it or by not modifying it, that may create a conflict. So this is a non-linear pipeline which has a very complex implementation. So here also there are three stages. You are feeding the input from here. Okay, the output may come directly, or A output can be fed to C input. Okay, C output can be fed to B input. Okay, C can also be output here. Okay, C output can also be fed as an input to A. Okay, and A output can also be fed as an input to C. Okay, so this is how I would like to say that this is a very complex pipeline, and it is a non-linear also, because you do not know the input sequence of operations. So a possible sequence can be A B C, B C, A C A. So A is executing, it is going to B, it is going to C, then again it is coming to B, then it is again feeding the output to the C input, then from C it is coming to A, then from A it is going to C, and from C it is again going to A. So this is how the implementation becomes complex, because you do not know that input should be feeded in non-pipelined fashion and where it should be feeded. Okay, so the stages may not execute in a linear fashion. In case of non-linear pipeline, a stage may execute more than once for a given data set. Okay, so here A is executed 3 times, B is executed here twice, and C is again executed 3 times. So here there would be 8 number of stages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In total we will have 8 number of stages if you have a possible sequence like this. Okay, now we are going to discuss the last classification, which is scheduling alternative. So I have told you there are 2 possibilities here, one is static, another one is dynamic. So in a static pipeline, some set of pipeline stages are executed for all data or instructions. Okay, and sequence of stages will always be same, whether linear or non-linear. Okay, so in a static pipeline your sequence will not change. Okay, so let's say you have A, B, C, B, C. So A, B, C, B, C would sustain for a longer period of time. It will not change. Okay, so this same set of stage sequence would be utilized for all sort of instructions, all data and instructions, and this sequence will not change. Okay, because it's a static pipeline. Okay, now if one data or instruction stalls means due to ongoing computation we may stop for one or more clock cycles. So let's say one stage is taking a longer amount of time. So in that scenario we can stop there for one or more clock cycles. We will allow that computation to complete, and then we feed the output into next stage as a input. Okay, so all subsequent stages would also be getting delayed if you are going to stop for one or more clock cycles. So that is your operation. So this is the description of stalls. So what I mean to say here is, if you stall for one data or instructions, all the stages would be getting delayed by that many number of clock cycles. So what you are going to understand from dynamic pipeline? So dynamic pipeline will change with time. Okay, the pipeline can be reconfigured so that different sequence of pipeline stages can get executed. So dynamic pipeline, the sequence of stages may change. In case of a static pipeline, the sequence of stages would not change. Okay, So in case of dynamic pipeline, it allows feed forward and feedback connections between the stages. So if you have seen the previous example, you can see that uh, the output of A can be directly fed to C, or the output of C can be feeded as the input to A. Okay, so I am going to again that diagram. So this is the diagram. So this is a feedback connection which is coming from C to A, okay, and feed forward connection is from A to C. You are going to directly, without going here, without going into B, your output of C is directly being feeded into input of C. So that is your feed forward connection, and from C you are going to A. So that is your feedback connection. So this is possible in case of dynamic pipeline, and with time the sequence of stages may change, so that the pipeline can be reconfigured to execute another set of instructions. Okay. Now there is one example here. So let's say we have to design a pipeline to carry out floating point addition and multiplication. Okay, that means we want to carry out addition operation as well as multiplication operations simultaneously. Okay, so when we perform addition, a sequence of type 1 would be executed, and when you perform multiplication, another type of sequence has to execute. Okay, so that is your dynamic pipeline. That means a pipeline can be constructed in such a way that it can be able to perform addition, simultaneously it can be able to perform multiplication. Okay. Now for these pipelines there is a very important term here which is called as reservation table. Okay, so reservation table is a very commonly used data structure which is utilized for pipeline purpose. It represents the successive stages in a synchronous manner. Okay, so let's say this is your time steps. So time steps are here specified as 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and there are 4 number of stages. So this is S1, S2, S3, S4, and in between these stages naturally you will be having latches. Why you need latches? To store the intermediate results. Okay, so this is a synchronous pipeline. This is your time steps, and it is a linear one because from S1 you are going to S2, from S2 you are going to S3, from S3 you are going to S4. So at time step 1, when the pipeline starts, S1 is executing. So here I have made cross. From S1 you are going to S2, from S2 you are going to S3, from S3 you are going to S4. Okay, at each time step, at each time step you are executing one stage. Okay, so at time step 1 your stage 1 execution is in progress. At time step 2 stage 1 has completed. Now it is input to stage 2. So stage 2 is executing now. After that stage 3 will executed after that at time step 3, and thereafter stage 4 would be getting executed at time step 4. So this is an example of a linear synchronous pipeline where all the stages execute in a pipeline fashion, and that too in each time step. Now this is your stage time diagram or a reservation table. Okay, so x-axis represents your time steps, y-axis represents your stages. Okay, so this is your stage time diagram which shows the precedence relationship among pipeline stages. Okay, so this diagram shows that onto which time step you are at which stage. Okay, so S1 would be executed in which of the time step, that you can easily tell from this diagram. So x-axis would represent your time steps, y-axis would represent your stages. Now number of columns gives your total evaluation time. Okay, so here 1, 2, 3, 4, your total evaluation time would be 4 units. Okay, okay, and this here you are able to get the total number of stages for a linear pipeline. If you have a non-linear, these stages may repeat. Now let's look at more complex reservation table. Okay, so by looking here at, you should be able to know that this is a non-linear pipeline, because it is having feed forward connections as well as it is having feedback connections. Okay, so this is a 3-stage non-linear pipeline, or you can say it's a multi-function pipeline, because you are getting 2 outputs. One output is specified as X, another output is specified as Y. Okay, for example, you can take it as that simultaneously you are carrying out X and Y. These X and Y can be addition and multiplication. Okay, so let's look at here. This is an example for non-linear pipeline, 3-stage dynamic multi-function non-linear pipeline. Okay, so for this pipeline you can make a reservation table, which is shown here. Okay, so there can be 2 reservation table. Okay, here I have divided a that means here I have taken a sequence of 6 stages. Here I have taken a sequence of 8 stages. Okay, so here I have taken a sequence S1, then from S1 it is going to S3. After that, from S3 it is going to S2. From S2 it is going to S3. From S3 it is going again to S1. From S1 it is again going to S3. So this is your one possible sequence. What is the sequence? S1, S3, S2, S3, S1, S3. So this is your one possible sequence, and based upon this sequence I have made one sort of reservation table. Okay, now let's look at here. This reservation table or stage time diagram also tells you that at first time step you are at stage S1, at second time step you are at stage S3, and so on and so forth. Now this is another example of sequence, and that sequence is S1, S2, S3, S2, S3, S1, S3, S1. Okay, so this is another type of sequence. Okay, now this multiple X's in a row tells you repeated use of same stage in a different cycle. Okay, so let's say if you have contiguous X's in a row. Okay, so that scenario is known to us as extended use of stage over more than one cycle. Okay, so let's say you put Y here also. That means at second time step S2 is a extended stage which is going beyond one time step. Okay, now if you have contiguous X in a row, that means it is a extended use of stage which goes over more than one clock cycle. Now if you have multiple cross in a same row, that means that stage would be repeated in different cycles. So here stage S3 is getting repeated at time step 2, time step 4, time step 6. So that is your repeated use of same stage. Now multiple X's in a column represent that both stages are using same data in parallel. Okay, so let's say I do not have a equal example. So let's say you are having Y, and Y is here also. That means at second time step S1 and S3 both are using this data. Okay, so multiple X's in a row means you are going to repeat the same stage in different clock cycles. Multiple cross in same column, that means both of the stages are using same data sets. And if you have contiguous X in a row, that means that particular stage is a extended stage which is going beyond that one clock cycle. Okay, now please look at these important terms. We will get back to these reservation table and stage time diagram in our next lecture. So first look at these important terms, that is speed up and efficiency. So we define few notations for calculations. Okay, so tau is here clock period, Ti is here time delay of the stage for stage Si, dl is the delay of the latch. Okay, So I have already told you why latch is used, to store the result temporarily after a stage. Now let's say there are k number of stages, S1, S2 up through Sk. Okay, so we will have equivalent delays, that would be T1, T2, T3 up to Tk. So before each of the stage we have delay elements or we have latches. So for each of the latches you will be having delays, that is for stage 1 T1 would be the latch delay, for stage S2 T2 would be the latch delay, for stage Sk Tk would be the latch delay. Now because of that you can evaluate maximum stage delay. So maximum stage delay would be tau of m would be max of Ti. So if you evaluate maximum of this vector T1, T2, T3 up to Tk, you can easily evaluate maximum stage delay, and that would be stored in this tau of m, that is represented with this expression. Therefore total time would be total time, that is clock period of the pipeline. That means this tau would be maximum stage delay plus delay of latch. Okay, so that is tau of m plus delay of latch. Okay, you can treat it as an average quantity. Okay, so your tau must not be less than this quantity, that is tau of m plus dl. Okay, so here I have explicitly written that tau must be at least equal to maximum stage delay plus delay of latch. Okay, so tau less than or equal to tau of m plus dl, that is delay of latch plus maximum stage delay. So please remember this mathematical expression, because it would be useful when you solve the numerical problems. How you are going to evaluate pipeline frequency? Your pipeline frequency would be represented by f, and that would be 1 divided by tau. Okay, this is a simple mathematical expression which you have seen many a times, that how you are going to evaluate the frequency. Now you can also evaluate the frequency in terms of maximum throughput. That means if you expect one result to come out every cycle, I have already given you the wash example, wash then dry then iron example. That means if you wait there for 2 clock cycle, after 2 clock cycle you will be getting result after each of the clock cycle. So hence this pipeline frequency will also represent the maximum throughput of the your processor or pipeline. Okay, so total time to process n data sets, or in the previous example I have told you the 2 clocks, is given by Tk is equal to k minus 1 plus n multiplied by tau. Okay, so this expression says that if you have k number of stages and n number of data sets, your total time would be k minus 1 plus n whole multiplied by tau. Okay, because tau is your total time period of pipeline. Okay, and there are n data sets. Okay, so n data sets and k number of stages. After k minus 1 number of stages, your one output would come, and after each of that after each time period you will be getting more number of outputs. So that is why this expression is k minus 1 plus n multiplied by tau. Okay, and we already know that if you are executing the computation without pipeline fashion, it would be n into tau. Okay, so you can evaluate the speed up pace, that is Sk is equal to T1 divided by Tk. Okay, so this is your T1 is your non-pipelined. For an equivalent non-pipelined processor, I have already told you it would be nt. So here it is n tau, and since there are k number of stages, it would be n into k into tau divided by k into tau plus n minus 1 into tau. Okay, so we have just expanded this expression, that is n into tau plus k into tau minus tau. So we have represented it in another way. Now this expression you can cancel out k tau, so it would be n into k divided by k plus n minus 1, and if n goes to infinity, you are going to achieve the maximum speed of k. Okay, so this is the ideal speed up, but that is just an assumption that if for a very large amount of n you are able to get the speed up of k. Now how you can evaluate the pipeline efficiency? Okay, pipeline efficiency means how close is the actual pipeline performance to its ideal value. Okay, that means how close your Sk is to k. Okay, so you should be getting the speed up of k. Okay, but your actual speed up is Sk, so you can subtract Sk from k. Okay, and there you can evaluate the pipeline efficiency. So efficiency would be Sk divided by k. So Sk would be, so this quantity would be n divided by k plus n minus 1. How you are going to get this expression? This is your Sk, okay, and that Sk you have divided by k, so that would be n divided by k plus n minus 1. So n divided by k plus n minus 1 would be your pipeline efficiency. You can also evaluate pipeline throughput. So throughput would be number of operations completed per unit time. Okay, you must have studied it in another subject, that is operating system. So here we are using in terms of pipeline. So pipeline throughput is number of operations completed per unit of time. So number of operations is n divided by tk. So n divided by k plus n minus 1 into tau, the same mathematical expression which we have seen for pipeline execution. So this is your pipeline throughput. Now please see this graph. It tells you the number of tasks versus the pipeline efficiency. So consider three cases where you have k is equal to 4, k is equal to 8 and k is equal to 12. So this is a graph with respect to k and number of tasks. So when k is equal to 4, you will be getting a speed up of 4. When k is equal to 8, okay, you are getting the speed up of equivalent to 8. Okay, so what I mean to tell you is that you cannot get the speed up, that is, you cannot get the speed up beyond this n. Okay, so as you vary number of tasks n, speed up also increases in a linear fashion. Okay, so for 4 stage pipeline it levels up to 4, it cannot go beyond 4. For 8 stage pipeline it levels up to 8, it cannot go beyond 8. Similarly for 12 stage pipeline it cannot go beyond 12. Okay, now again these are pipeline efficiency, throughput, speed up. After that there is a very important term, that is clock skew, jitter or setup time. Okay, so previously we have talked about clock period depends on latch delay and your circuit time, that is tau and tk, but here clock period also depends on few other things. Okay, so minimum clock period must satisfy the expression, that is tau must be greater than or equal to t skew plus jitter plus t logic plus setup. Okay, so please look at this expression and then we are going to see that what is this skew, what is this jitter and what are these terms and from where this expression came out. So your skew is maximum delay difference between arrival of clock signal at stage latches. Okay, so let's say you have applied the clock here. Okay, and when you have activated this clock from here, this latch would be activated, and when you have activated the clock, this latch should also be activated. So the delay between the arrival of clock signal here and the time when the clock signal arrives here, so that delay would be known as skew. Okay, so clock signal reaches here, that time, clock signal reaches here, that particular time. If you subtract those times, you are able to get the skew. So that is what I have written here, that is maximum delay difference between arrival of clock signals at stage latches. Second is jitter. So maximum delay difference between the arrival of clock signals at the same latch. So let's say this is a latch, you have activated the clock and it has reached here in 2 nanosecond. Okay, operation gets completed, again you have activated the clock, now it is reaching here at 4 nanoseconds. So jitter is, you just evaluate the difference, so 4 minus 2 is 2 nanoseconds. Okay, so jitter is maximum delay difference between the arrival of clock signal at the same latch. Skew is maximum delay difference between the arrival of clock signal at different latches. Okay, now when a designer design the clock, okay, he design in such a way that these delays, that is skew and jitter, must be minimized. Now this is over, that is we have seen what is skew, we have also seen what is jitter. Now we will be seeing what is logic and what is setup. Okay, so logic delay is T logic, representation is T logic, and what is this T logic is, this is maximum delay of the slowest stage in the pipeline. Okay, so let's say there is a stage which takes the maximum time to execute. Okay, so your logic delay would be maximum delay of the slowest stage in the pipeline. What that stage taking the time to execute that operation, that would be known as logic delay. And your setup time is minimum time a signal needs to be stable at the input of a latch before it can be captured. So when you activate a clock, okay, it must be stable, then only your latch will be activated. Okay, so your setup time would be minimum time a signal, minimum time which is taken by the signal to get stable so that the latch captures it. Okay, so now I think you got the idea of skew, jitter, logic and setup, and when you add these terms, it must be less than or equal to tau. Okay, so when you evaluate the pipeline efficiency, throughput or performance, you must not ignore these terms, that is skew, jitter, logic or setup. Okay, so your overall expression would be tau must be greater than T skew plus jitter plus tau logic plus setup. So this plus should be a little lower. Okay, so T skew plus jitter is one term and tau logic plus setup is another term. So this gives us the lower bound of the clock period that can be used, and designer must design clock in such a way that this skew, jitter, logic and setup, these can be minimized. Now pipelining scheduling we will be discussing in the next lecture. So in this lecture what we have seen, we have seen how overall task is divided into number of stages, and if you do that, your speed up would be equivalent to k. So let's say you have divided one overall computation into k number of stages, you can get up to k amount of speed up. Okay, in pipeline you have to have the execution in a overlapped fashion. You can have partial overlap or you can have fine grain overlap. After that we have seen different terms, that is speed up, efficiency, skew, jitter, logic time, setup time. Okay, then we have also seen that how the pipelining affects the execution. Okay, we have also seen an example, a real life example, that is wash, dry and iron. Okay, so in that case we have seen it is giving us the speed up of k. Now what we are going to discuss in the next lecture is, that is pipeline scheduling. So pipeline scheduling means how you can schedule the stages or how you can put the stages in such a way that conflict should not occur. So let's say you have 3 stages. Okay, there are 3 inputs to stage 1, so you should feed the input in such a way that conflict should not occur in subsequent stages. Okay, so that we are going to look at in next lecture. Thank you for today's lecture.